So far, what I'm saying is all the research tells us these kids lack skill, not will. Figure out what skills they lack and teach them. Here's why things are a bit more complicated. Having a skills deficit related to problem solving, flexibility, frustration tolerance alone doesn't cause challenging behavior. Why is that? Well, in essence, because it takes two to tango. You have to pair a lagging skill with some demand that would require that skill to see the challenging behavior. In other words, let's think about a traditional learning disability. Does a kid who struggles to read because they have a hard time phonetically decoding words, are they struggling all throughout their school day? And in fact, when they get home too, because of their difficulty phonetically decoding words? I mean, like on the bus and at lunchtime and recess and art and science, and are they always struggling? No. When are they at greatest risk for struggling?
When they have to read.
When you ask them to read, right? Well, the same holds true for challenging behavior. When do kids who have a hard time tolerating frustration and being flexible exhibit their challenging behavior? When the world asks them to tolerate frustration and be flexible. So it takes two to tango. Lagging skills alone don't cause challenging behavior. Instead, the very definition of challenging behavior is really when a demand is placed upon somebody that requires skills to handle that demand in a good manner that the person lacks or isn't able to bring to bear in that moment. It takes two to tango. The pairing of a skills deficit and some kind of problem, situation, etc., issue that would require those skills to handle it well. It takes two to tango. And when this definition is met, in other words, when there's a demand placed upon a kid that they lack the skills to handle well, that's when you see challenging behavior. And I'm explicitly using the term challenging, even though we tend to be known particularly for the explosive variety of kids, because what we've learned over time is whether they're an exploder or an imploder or anything else in between, all that is their particular flavor of saying, I'm having a hard time handling something the world is throwing at me. So whether they tend to explode, they externalize it, or whether they internalize, in either case, what can you be sure? There was some kind of precipitant situation, trigger, demand that the kid was having a hard time handling. What's your job then? Figure out what that demand was, and are they ever going to see it again, and what skills they lack that they're going to need in more abundance to handle those things in the future. So, if we go back to slide number 2 today, your explanation guides your intervention, and we're following the research when it comes to these kids, and they lack skill, not will, then what's the appropriate intervention? Not to motivate more compliant behavior, but to figure out what skills they lack, as we said before, but also, here's the more complicated part, figure out what the predictable problems are that trip the challenging behavior. Tip it off, the antecedents to it. And we're going to have to start working towards solving those chronic problems together with the child. And that is all this approach is about. Figure out what skills the kid lacks, start working on teaching them. Figure out what the chronic problems are that lead to the challenging behavior because of those skills deficits, and start working on them together with the kid. If we want to be quite simple about this, here's in essence what we're saying. We're saying, you know what? At the end of the day, we only have 2 levers to pull here. What are the 2 levers? Well, the problems the kid is having, the problem the kid is having a hard time handling or solving on their own. How do you know they're having a hard time handling it? Because of their challenging behavior. And the skill set that kid has to handle those problems. And I think what's interesting is you see kids who behave in a challenging way because of all kinds of different combinations in these 2 areas. You see kids who you would say, wow, I mean, this kid has one of the best lives a kid could ever want. I don't know why he's so challenging. What is that? That's a kid with very small problems to solve in life, but a severely lagging skill set when it comes to problem solving. Conversely, you see kids in the completely different direction, where you say, this kid actually has very good skills. I mean, for his age, he's actually quite skilled when it comes to problem solving, flexibility, and frustration tolerance. And yet, the world is throwing him major, major problems to solve. And his skill set, while excellent for his age, isn't up to snuff to meet the demands of those overwhelming problems. Read, for instance, trauma. And of course, you see everything in between. You see kids with medium problems and somewhat lagging skills and everything else in between. But in either case, what are we saying in this approach? Well, we got to help this kid try to solve the problems they're having a hard time solving and build up their skill set to handle those problems in the future. That's what this is all about.